I hope you answered your question, yes, please feel free to follow.
Good afternoon, sir. My question is to Mr. Srinivas. You mentioned about lazy banking. So I just wanted to know what is the role of monetary policy in this life, and what can be done to fast-paced growth from now onwards?
Actually nothing, in my opinion, and to be honest, in India it's still fine. If you look at what is happening in Europe, it's even, if I may, and this views are completely personal, by the way, but it's true. What's happening in Europe is the same thing, that you have this ECB, ESF, the various, bodies which have been formed. What they are doing essentially is they are giving money literally at a very low yield, which banks are going and borrowing. And that money is now being put to actually buy back the sovereign bonds of the failing countries or whatever, peripheral countries. So what the bank is basically doing is borrowing at 0% or whatever, 1%, and the yields on them are actually right now 7-8%. The money is not going, what the initial objective is to go into the hands of, enterprises which will give growth. So be aware that sometimes we will go through this period of what I termed as lazy banking. In India, obviously, you've seen the private sector actually, for example, hold back lending to a lot of the large corporate houses in India. Look at, I don't know if you've seen a study, but I think the top 10 houses in India basically account for more than 13-14% of the loans of the banking system. And if you segregate the private sector, which is banks which are practically not lend, the entire money sits in the public sector banks. And one has to question how it happened. I mean, I track telecom and I can tell you, most of the money which was used for bidding even in the so-called 2G scam was money given by banks. How in the world were you lending money to Union or Unitech when you can see that the return on capital for Bharti is falling? Okay, so was the banker asking this question? So in that sense, now in a way the lazy banking is the right route for the banking until this excesses kind of come out. What is not happening in India, that's obviously strange, is that even though you are seeing stresses in the system, assets are not changing hands, which is what makes, for example, again the most visible example of that is Kingfisher. Here is an airline which practically would be bankrupt if it was sitting in US, yet it is running. Its largest promoter has practically washed his hands off, and yet he continues to have a stake in the company. If you look at the UB group, their stake in the company has not gone down. In a normal scenario, his stake would probably have gone down to zero. You would have new players coming willing to put capital and take it. So that restructuring is not happening, like it happened for Satyam. Because Satyam happened to be in a sector where there was not much government interventions or regulations. So the entire workout, if I may say, happened through private actors. The board was formed, Deepak Parekh chaired it, and they basically said, fine, I just auctioned the asset, which was Satyam share. That's not happening in a lot of other sectors actually. You look at power projects, the promoters in India still continue to hold on to their assets despite, and the banks are unable to force that. In fact, banks are in an even worse position. In Kingfisher, State Bank of India now has equity, which is obviously, so to say, an outcome which is not desirable. So, to that extent, it's not bad that they have lazy banking for some time, so that the risk is clear, which corporates have risks, which don't have, and then slowly we will start lending back. And this, by the way, let me highlight that one of the biggest risks which people talk about is this whole, literally money available for free. 0%, what you call money, which is literally available from central banks. The last time we had this LTRO, which was essentially ECB giving out money and all that. You'd be surprised to know in that a lot of the finance companies of car companies in Europe were one of the biggest borrowers there. So you have a company called PSA Citroën, which is a practically bankrupt company. The finance arm of that firm actually went and also asked for money from ECB, and the rules were such that you could do that. Suddenly what has happened is a firm which ought to have gone bankrupt. Europe has a huge overcapacity in cars. Huge. It has not happened. Okay, so that firm exists. There is still overcapacity and that industry issue has not been solved. Compared to US, where the government of the US actually forced GM to go bankrupt. So as I said, there are, the issue is in terms of the asset needs to change hands and only then the banking will change. The bankers will then be more incentivized to lend to corporates.
Hello, sir. My question is special to BN Sound, sir. Sir, there are two types of circuit filters, what you told about that, stock-based and index-based. So what is the criteria of having two types of this different circuit filters and why? Because some stocks are having 5%, 10%, 15, 20. So what is the criteria and why?
Particularly in the case of illiquid stocks, we have put a script-based circuit filter, and those stocks are included in the futures segment. Those stocks have been exempted from the script-based circuit filters, and that will take care. The index-based circuit filter will take care of the index-based future stocks. This is the criteria we have to look. Otherwise, the illiquid stocks, if we put some circuit breaker, earlier it was 8%, then it was national 16%, then it's very difficult for the investor to exit from the market. So, in fact, I have already mentioned the stocks when very liquidity very less, we have to put them in T for trade trades, trade for trade. When each and every trade needs to be settled, no trade can be squared up. There will be no speculation in the market in the illiquid stocks.
Good afternoon, sir. My very common question is all quite high right now. What should Germany stand on the Eurozone crisis be? Do we see the split up of the Eurozone anytime in the future?
The views are personal, not of my own.